Alrighty, well, a very happy Wednesday, and welcome to the throw-in on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. What's going on, everyone? How are we doing? Just kind of settling in here on a Wednesday. Man, we got a lot to talk about. Gonna go very different directions, possibly throughout the day. So bear with us. Let me first off and start with, because there's a lot of sports, but before we get to sports, I want to go ahead and promote to you guys. So about a month ago, I was doing interviews that you guys may have saw on the program. You guys can, or you guys listen, you guys could go back and actually watch those individual interviews. But I did interviews with the cast of Enlightened Studios, because Terry Chappelle came to me and said, "Hey, listen, I'm going to be putting on a production play up here in Fairfield over the weekend, and I want, I'm a fan of your show. We're former colleagues, used to work with him, we're good friends, and I said, he was like, hey man, I want, maybe an opportunity for my cast to kind of come on a platform source and share their experience with, the process of putting together a theoretical play. And, we want to share the experiences and the hype and the nerves. So I got a, chance to interview the group of the cast. I interviewed a total of 18 people over a rapid file weekend. And, I was unfortunate. It was a great cast. They were great people. I learned a lot from them, learned, about the play. I learned that it was a lot more. It was a family oriented. They really came together more on a family level beyond the stage. And, this Enlightened company who, Enlightened Studios company that's been growing for the last several years. It's one big, family. And so, was talking to Terry. He's kind of kept me in the loop with how things have went. And he approached me earlier this month. He was like, man, we got a chance and the opportunity to kind of put on an encore show, and got a chance to do that. And by doing that, he was like, listen, I would love to get these guys back on your show and, kind of talk to them about, their experience from the past. Also, we're getting a chance to do it again in April 7th and April 9th is going to be their next, it'll be April 7th and April 8th. They'll have two shows, and they're hoping afterwards they could start taking this on the road and start traveling with this. So I'm like, no problem. So we're currently working on settling up interviews, which means from now until then, we are promoting and advertising Love's Not Enough, written and directed by Terry Chappell II. And that they will be aired at the Community Arts Center in Fairfield, Ohio, the Easter weekend. Good Friday on April 7th. They'll have a production at 7 p.m. And then they'll conclude their performances on April 8th, at 3 p.m. Tickets are available. You guys head on over to the Community Arts Center in Fairfield, Ohio's website, and you'll be able to get your tickets today. And we hopefully will be airing some of those interviews out throughout the next week or two, leading up until the production. And I'm just thinking to myself, it kind of dawned on me last night doing some production work for the program. And I'm like, man, we have ourselves a lot of to talk about, a lot to go through. One thing that, happens when you have interviews is that they take 15, 20, 25, 30 minutes sometimes at most. And that takes up a good chunk of your program. So with WrestleMania, with opening day on the way, we're packed, and I'm excited. A lot is heading on the plate, and we're looking forward to talk about a lot of things. Well, I was doing my calculations this morning, like I do when I wake up, counting the days down to WrestleMania and the days of opening day, and we are officially 8 days away from Major League Baseball opening day. What does that mean? We are officially 8 days away from Cincinnati Reds and the Pittsburgh Pirates game one of 162 season. We are 8 days away for Hunter Green getting the nod to start opening day. What does that mean? Is that we basically have one, two, three. I'm counting 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 days. No, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, including today, to really talk a lot about Cincinnati Reds baseball. And with the mix of it, we still got, we got about, with 8 days away from opening day, we got about 10 days away from night one of WrestleMania, which, let's not forget, we still got NXT Stand and Deliver that's going to be aired earlier that day, which, as of NXT, last night is shaping up to be a good program, I would say. So our plates are full. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. And when I say we got a lot of stuff to talk about, I mean, I'm expecting to really dive into some of those questions. I'm listening to the Lock on Reds podcast, listening to Jeff over there. Who was it? I just literally had their names. I was listening to Jeff and Steven on the Lock on Reds, and they're going after, they're going after bold predictions. I'm like, why can't we go to bold predictions? But one thing that we haven't done that I will get to in this program today, we're going to start looking at, we got to pay a visit to the rest of the NL Central, you guys, because it's just, I say it's an unfair game. Like, we're talking a lot about Cincinnati Reds, but we also need to understand exactly what are we going up against when it comes down to playing. We're kicking on things off against the Pirates. Then we're going to go against the Chicago Cubs. We'll also see St. Louis and Pittsburgh and Milwaukee, St. Louis and Milwaukee throughout the year. So we have our hands tied and our hands, full, because projectively coming out at the beginning of the season, we're expected to be nobody special. We're expected to be dead last. We're expected to probably finish as one of the worst division, team records of the season. And it's difficult to comprehend that when, one, this is this is the hometown that we're rooting for. And on top of that, we see the players, we see the potential, we see what they can become. And if you compare it to a team that was put together last year from the Red Legs, then you would honestly say, at least honestly, to my defense, I would say that this is a better team than it was, at least have better, potential than it was last year. Last year was probably a tough pill to swallow for Reds fans. But now we're starting to see the progression of the moving forward process of that rebuild process. But in order to understand how good our team could be, because let's remind everyone, we got to face all 29 other teams because the new schedule formatting has us playing every single team, less of your divisional games, more of your, of everyone else. So instead of having that Instead of playing that one opposing league division, we'll get a chance to play all three of them, at least home and away and whatnot. And sometime next week, we'll have to actually sit down and go through the roster or to go through the schedule. But we do need to understand what we're dealing up against. And when I say that, I mean we have to understand just how like what are the Cardinals expected to be this year? What are the Cubs? They've made some additions picking up Dansby Swanson and Eric Hosmer. Are they contenders this year? What are we going to have to face throughout the 2023 season? So starting today, we'll start to take a look at some of those teams and some of those divisional teams here and kind of see what we're impressed about, what we don't have impressed about. We'll talk some more wrestling matchups as we get ready for AEW Dynamite tonight. Biggest question coming out of AEW is who's that next challenger going to be? Last week we saw not one, not two, but three young, homegrown, talented stars arise to the occasion, crashing the bar mitzvah of MJF. You had Jungle Boy Jack Perry, Darby Allin, and Sammy Guevara. And we talked a little bit about last week, but we want to repay it a visit because Dynamite is tonight. And we kind of move forward to seeing who's going to be challenging MJF next for that AEW World Heavyweight Championship. We'll also talk about, we'll get you guys ready for the NIT tournament as the Bearcats take on the Utah Valley in the NIT Final 8. That'll be the nighttime game tonight. The Bearcats, who lost to Marshall, will go on and take care of business we'll actually have to get a chance to face Xavier Musketeers, Cincinnati battles here. If the weather is permitted, because it's supposed to be raining throughout the day. I don't really have, it says it's supposed to be fine now. Kind of looks like cloudy the rest of the day, but you never know. So, and it's supposed to really start back up until tomorrow morning, but we really just don't know. And it's also supposed to be cold. So we'll, hopefully the game still progresses. We'll keep you guys updated if we hear anything. But yeah, we have some nice Cincinnati battle here. Also getting ready for some Cyclones hockey as they begin a 3-game series out there in Utah against the Grizzlies. The Reds will get the chance to take on the Padres at the Goodyear Ballpark tonight. Graham Ashcraft will get them out, so we'll cover that, get you guys ready for the game day. But we want to first off and kick off this show by congratulating the Team Japan for beating Team USA in the World Baseball Classics yesterday. This was a game. It was a close game, and realistically, any two teams, that you really want to play in the final game of them all, United States and Japan was those two, and it's kind of it's a bummer. I'm kind of ready to move on. Yet again, I'm not in the game, because of just how energetic and spark that the World Baseball Classic brought to the baseball world. And let's not forget that games were sold out both in Arizona and in Miami, and we had some not only really good crowds but interacting crowds. Every time a ball was hit, every time a play was made, and it kind of makes you feel as if you want to or in this sense, it kind of makes you feel as if you want to, this should be brought back to our local teams. I'm hearing this all morning long that, this is kind of, that Major League Baseball teams are intrigued and invested now because of this World Baseball Classic. And, unfortunately, United States is going to have to wait a couple years. But, what was a really exciting time, because surprisingly, I was because last night went to bed a little bit early. Because I was tired. Okay, everyone was tired in the house. We ate dinner, went to bed, and we saw what we did see. I kind of was tuning back and forth between NXT and United States. I didn't catch the last inning of the United States of the game, and apparently it went down to Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout, two Angel guys that were, that are kind of really hell raised. Their high expectation. It was 2 outs of the game, and we really got a chance to see. So got a chance to pull the card and the audio. So listen to this final out 3-2 count for Mike Trout. You have a runner on. It was nobody on, and they're down by 1 run. Here's Mike Trout at the plate. Shohei Ohtani pitching on a 3-2 count, top of the 9th inning.
Trout's ready. 3-2. He struck him out. Ohtani strikes out Trout, and Japan's back on top of the baseball world.
Wow.
He broke out his best slider.
Well, so my thing is, it's just, I'm thinking about this and I'm like, fans, you got to be excited that the World Baseball Classic has ended, on a positive yet downhill note. Man, the it's kind of a bummer that World Baseball Classic is over with, and now you have to wait another 3 years to see it again. I mean, I really like to see. It really brought the intensity out of it. Kind of got me ready for Major League Baseball that's going to begin next week. It kind of gets me excited now to go on and watch the Cincinnati Reds. Would it not? I mean, maybe it gets you excited to watch whatever you guys want to watch, and you support your teams. But this gets me excited for watching Cincinnati Reds, and hopefully one day here soon, we can see the Reds doing the same exact thing that Japan did in the World Baseball Classic. It was kind of that, ironic moment, that kind of picture perfect moment, if you're asking me, between Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. And you also got to love what Mike Trout said afterwards about the game. He just stayed humble. He says, listen, you got me the first time. And, we'll see each other again in 3 years, technically. But, man, what a finished way to end off the World Baseball Classic and getting you guys ready for opening day here next Thursday. All right, let's take the first break of the morning. Want to give everyone a good afternoon. Welcome here on the program. If you guys are watching us live on YouTube, make sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Make sure to have those notifications on if you guys, so you guys don't miss a single episode. If you guys are over on Facebook and or Twitter, we thank you guys. Hit that like button, share it with your friends. Hop on over to our YouTube page and leave us a comment down below. Get involved into the conversations. If you guys are also listening to us on audio platforms, we thank you for being valid listeners. Without you guys, none of this is possible. So let's take the first time out of the morning. Let's come on back and let's talk sports here. You guys are listening to The Throne here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Already 12:23. Take you guys up for 2 hours here onto the program. That means we'll take you guys up until 2 p.m. here on this Humpback Wednesday. Humpback Day, whatever you guys want to call it. You know, none of this is possible without the help of StreamYard Studios, the proud home of the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel, where you could create your podcasts, videos, host virtual business meetings, and even conduct interviews. Check out their free version today. And as I would like to say, all guests on our show is given to you thanks to StreamYard Studios. So go check them out. Hopefully you guys can find your best product through StreamYard. You know, we are 10 days away from WrestleMania. And, you know, I want to just somewhat implement every, show, some sort of conversation that we have in regards to the road to WrestleMania. So one of the big questions that I am asking here, okay, are more like, what matches are you guys excited to see, and what matches are you not excited to see? So I would like to kind of combine these two and kind of just go over them. We'll start off with the matches that I am looking for, and there's a handful of matches that make sense to me, and there's a handful of matches that don't make sense to me. And you know, we could talk about the obvious matches that have been put together, but one match that really does make sense to me, that does attract my attention, has to be, that actually shocked me by surprise. And it wasn't until just recently that, the idea came of this is the only way that it could work, is Gunther taking on or defending his Intercontinental Championship between Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. I mean, so I think today's overall topic is that, we were told two different stories. I was told, based off of rumors, a story where Triple H doesn't want to overfill the match cards at WrestleMania, but at the same time, you do want to emphasize in getting as many people involved into the show as possible. And this is a good reason, or a primary reason, example, of succeeding that limitation. And when you start thinking about what these men are capable of doing in the ring, because definitely what they're capable of doing individually. Gunther and Sheamus started off WrestleMania, the Royal Rumble, excuse me. These two men started off the Royal Rumble, and Gunther went all the way down and that got eliminated by Cody Rhodes. To throw Drew McIntyre in the match, I think just elevates it that more. There is a clear reason why you want to see Sheamus as, facing Gunther, because he's a win shy for becoming a Grand Slam champion. And I think at WrestleMania right now, if you're asking me to predict who's going to win, I'd go throw Sheamus out there in the open, saying, all right, Sheamus could become Grand Slam champion and beat these two men. And what's so great about it is that he doesn't have to pin Drew McIntyre, or he doesn't have to pin Gunther. Or he has to pin one of those two, but he doesn't have to pin both of them. Excuse me. So this is just a prime example of using your roster to the advantage. I think, there was also, there's kind of expectations heading into WrestleMania. And one of the expectations is that you got to see you got to kind of see through every title opportunity possible. I don't remember a WrestleMania where a title, at least a main title, was forgotten about. Now I will say that, this whole chapter and story between Gunther, Sheamus, and Drew all kind of came together a little rapidly. There was a promotion back at Elimination Chamber where where we were going to see a battle royale to determine the number one contender to face Gunther at WrestleMania. But we got three just bruiserweight men who love to fight. And I honestly would say the only downfall of this match is that it would be a shame to see this match not have any stipulation to it. I want things to be thrown around. I want things to kind of be torn apart. And I feel like the only way to do that is by making some sort of stipulation. Now, on the contrary note, there's matches that we like. And I think there's a handful of matches I could rattle off. I just named you the triple threat match. We could also indicate that I'm a fan of the Usos battling Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. I'm a fan of Bianca Belair and Asuka. I'm a fan of Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. A match that I'm not a fan of, which for me goes back around to what I was saying. You're trying to fit as many athletes at WrestleMania as possible without overbooking the match card. And there's two matches right off the top of my list that I'm kind of like, well, I just don't quite know. There's really no motivation. There's really no backstory. They're just throwing this together to get men out there and females out there. And for one, that's going to be this fatal four-way tag team match where Braun Strowman, Ricochet takes on the Street Profits, that take on Alpha Academy, that they take on the Viking Raiders. And you know what? All 8 competitors definitely deserve to be somewhere at WrestleMania. But what is the benefit of having these 4 teams compete in the ring, maybe on the kickoff show? I'm a little bummed that guys like Braun Strowman just is not highlighted. Doesn't have that clear role that I think is probably expected. No? I mean, there's some, I haven't really been impressed with Braun Strowman and since his return. Not saying Braun Strowman is a bad athlete, absolutely not. But the way that the WWE creative team has been using him, teaming him up with Ricochet, just really shows me that they're beyond him. That his time has come and honestly has gone, and the feuds that you have are with him, and the involvement that you have with him with Ricochet. And this is no discredit to what they've accomplished, but for me, they just kind of thrown these 2 men out there to get in-ring time. It's almost mediocre to me. Every other team is, it's well known. I've never seen Braun Strowman and Ricochet together. How come they haven't won gold yet? Thanks to the Usos and the Bloodline and that creative team. And so what? I guess the question is does the winner get some sort of consolation prize? And if so, at what discard or what hands? Because right now, the way that the WWE is talking, or the rumors lingering around WWE, is that come Backlash, which is the next pay-per-view in May, by the way, which means you have a whole month down the road, you're going to see Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and the Usos do battle again, and one of them is walking away as champion. So, if you're going to put a consolation prize at one of these 4 men, let's say Braun Strowman and Ricochet win, okay, great. You get a future tag team championship match. I mean, how long It's gonna be at least 2 months before you get that title opportunity, and you just hope that no one gets significantly injured to go down a different direction. While on the female side of things, apparently this is kind of supposed to be the same way. You have Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez right now that I can confirm. They're going to have a fatal four-way tag team match as well. I'm assuming to determine the number one contender for the women's tag team championship. Now, this is kind of interesting because you definitely are moving away from Damage Control being in that title picture again, because all right, you got Liv and we got Raquel Rodriguez. I'm assuming Ronda and Shayna Baszler. Now I know Ronda is still technically hurt, but they're using her in a more lighter position, which would make sense in this fatal four-way match and give her some extra time, which then leads to me to believe that they could potentially be I think, because from my understanding, the original plan was to have Lita and Becky Lynch face Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania, and then Shayna and Ronda become tag team champions. But because of Ronda's injury, we have to kind of now prolong that time frame, and you hope that if the timetables are correct for Plan B, that Ronda and Shayna will be ready for Backlash in May. But we could see them enter in, and then we have 2 more open slots. So, although I'm not a fan favorite of this match, and this most likely is a match to be seen on the pre-kickoff show of WrestleMania one of the nights, I think it's also just intriguing because for the women's side of things, you know that there could be a clear direction. I've never saw a WrestleMania match booked just because. There has to be some sort of promise, some sort of stipulation, some sort of understanding. And in my opinion, I don't quite see that in the men's tag team match that is going to be held at WrestleMania. I feel like when it comes down to the 8 men in that fatal four-way tag team match, that all we're really seeing is 8 men who probably deserves to be at WrestleMania, just being filled in and booked because WWE and its creative team hasn't really had a clear path of what they wanted to do. And I think it's kind of a bummer because, you have to go, usually WrestleMania is the indication that, all right, here we are. We're going to, we're either settling disputes, we're either winning titles. I hardly seen WrestleMania be one to where they set up to a future opportunity, unless it's like the Money in the Bank or the Battle Royal. So I guess this is kind of a new format of the same thing we've been dealing with. But I want to know from you guys, what matches are you guys excited to watch at WrestleMania? What matches are you guys not so excited to watch at WrestleMania? And I really want to hear what you guys have to say. So make sure you guys comment down below and let me know. All right, let's take a break. Let's step on aside and come on back. We'll talk more sports here on The Throw-In, available on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, welcome back here on The Throw-In, bottom half of hour number 1 underway, getting to you guys. And one thing that we have not really talked about is the upcoming, we've directed our attention to WrestleMania in 10 days, right? If I have my calendar correct, I'm pulling it up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In 10 days, night one of WrestleMania will be underway. And one thing that we really haven't talked about also is NXT Stand and Deliver. That'll be live on 1 Eastern time. 1 p.m. Eastern time. Now, I looked at the 10 Pacific, and I was like, 10 p.m.? You serious? But it'll be available on Peacock. And a couple great matches really formed over this past couple weeks. And the number one match that will get underway, and we'll give our predictions when the time comes next week, is Braun Breaker will go on and defend his NXT championship against Carmelo Hayes. And I really like this match, but so when I think of NXT Stand and Deliver, I have to sometimes maybe remind myself that NXT has built itself its own brand that isn't always correspondence to what the WWE has offered in the past. So when we start talking about these matches, I've always kind of referred to myself is because one thing that happens with the WWE is that there's plans of returns, bring up, promotions, outside company free agent signees. And, last year I was sitting here talking about the possibility to see Braun Breaker come up to the main roster. And and I guess I want to ask you guys this, and we'll talk as we talk about this, and we'll have more open discussions closer to Stand and Deliver and closer to Monday Night Raw, is that, are we ready for someone like Braun Breaker to come up? He's held NXT on his shoulders for the past year, and I think he's really done a lot of great things, and he's really paved himself that right direction of being that next big thing. Ironically, knock on wood, because the WWE 2K23 has that quote unquote next big thing. But you ask yourself, is this the time or the place? Now, I've always thought maybe one thing that he could have done is come up and dethrone, Roman Reigns. My other thought of, seeing Braun Breaker come up and being that guy to kind of have the Goldberg's last match since, where Goldberg tosses over the reins to Braun Breaker, and Braun Breaker has a squash match. Braun Breaker comes up and faces Brock Lesnar as another guy that he could get over with. But maybe there's a different direction. Maybe he comes up and he, becomes, he goes after the championship. There's also plenty of other questions coming out of the WWE post WrestleMania that I don't even think we have fathomed to even address. You look at a guy like, I like to consider, if you go look at a guy like, and you know what? Let me rephrase that, because I'm not even looking at a at a guy. But I think there are some decisions that we're waiting to get answered post WrestleMania. One of them are they just gonna decide to split those titles again, both the tag team and the undisputed WWE Universal Championship? Because, in a sense, why do you have two titles for all this time? The only thing that I think of is to emphasize that, some person holds two titles, because in AEW you see guys holding multiple titles, or you're just not sure if you want to combine them or not, and then you could kind of combine them after WrestleMania and become, go a different direction for another title. But Braun Breaker will defend his title against Carmelo Hayes. We have Johnny Gargano and Grayson Waller will battle in a bitter grudge match. I believe it's non-sanctioned. Anything goes. And the last time I saw a non-sanctioned match from Johnny, I believe, was with Tommaso Ciampa, and he got his head bashed in. Andre Chase, Duke Hudson, Tia Hale, and Tyler Bate will face is it Shizm? Sorry. At Stand and Deliver after the debate that they had this past week. I apologize. I don't know why I'm tired, I guess. Got Gallus, the Creed brothers, and the family to square off in a triple threat for the NXT tag team titles, which I think is going to be I think it's going to be exciting to see that. And the family is going to be Tony D'Angelo and his partner. So this is a little interesting. Wesley is to defend his title in a fatal 5-way, and we already have 3 of the 4 contenders. Instead of an open challenge, Lee has allowed to pick his 4 opponents for the match, which is going to be a good test as late. Okay. So we see, who do we see? Okay. So we see Dragon Lee, because of mutual respect, which I like, follow by Ilja Dragunov and JD McDonough after the 2 superstars brawled with them. A battle royal on NXT next week will determine the 5th and final competitor for the match. So we'll have that. We have the NXT Women's Tag Team Championships. The Fallen Henley and Kiana James defends their titles against Alba Farie and Isla Dawn. That's going to be a pumped up match. But the one that I was kind of interested in is the fatal 5-way ladder match to determine the new NXT Women's Championship after Roxanne Perez successfully defends her women's title and then collapsed. So we have Zoe Stark, who was the first competitor who earned her spot after defeating Sol Ruka and Gigi Dolan, defeating Sol Ruka, Gigi Dolan then became the second one after a win over Kiana James. Tiffany Stratton and Lyra Valkyra qualified after their wins against Indy Hartwell and Wendy Chu last night. Now, Hartwell, Niall, and Rika will compete for the last qualifying match, and the superstar will enter enter the way. Now, this is where my knowledge for NXT is lackluster. But I would also like to see maybe that 5th spot go to to JC Jane. Who knows? But NXT Stand and Deliver is turning up to be something spectacular. And it's going to be a huge weekend next weekend. You think about this. You got SmackDown at that, I forgot the arena. I call it Staples Center. You got SmackDown. You got the Hall of Fame immediately after. You got, which I think is a nice addition. You got to stay up extremely late for that. Then you got, what is it? You got NXT Stand and Deliver at that arena that night. And then you head over to SoFi Stadium for WrestleMania Night 1, then WrestleMania Night 2, and then back at it at Monday Night Raw afterwards. So the schedule is built up pretty heavily, and I think I really like the matchup that we have. It's going to be a lot of wrestling next Saturday. A lot of wrestling. And that's only in the WWE region. We haven't even looked, and I don't think we will, among like the Super Card of Honor and all that other match, cards on Friday night, Saturday night. There's not a single bad match that I see for NXT Stand and Deliver. For WWE, that's another hand. But there's not a bad match that I see for NXT Stand and Deliver. Matter of fact, I'm liking each and every one of them. And I'm actually just maybe more intrigued to seeing, what falls out afterwards. Like I said, what's the changes? Who gets called up? Does anyone get called up? Hunter, like you said, Hunter sent out there and, went out there to social media and said, expecting big call-ups. I know that Roman Reigns is one of, is a suggestion because he's been out almost a year with back injury. You also see maybe that Forbidden Door opens again and someone returns. Haven't seen Matt Riddle. Was told that he was kind of getting a new look with new gear. So what happens? It's an exciting time. I'm thankful for it. So this is what we have planned for hour number 2. I'm going to come back. I'm going to break down the NIT games as 2 games concluded yesterday. Since getting you guys ready for Cincinnati and Utah Valley today. We'll get some local college baseball as we prep for Xavier in Cincinnati tonight. Go over all those games. The Reds play the Padres tonight. And talking about the Reds and talking about, we got to start looking at the new direction. Not the new direction, but the direction that, all right, hey, listen, we are not, we got to look at some of these other teams in our division, because the only way we're gonna be able to we first got to be able to understand what is in our path in order to get to a division championship or a wild card spot in the National League. What do we have to do? We've already been counted out. Does that remain? So let's take a break. Let's come on back and let's continue talking about some of these sports. We've got 2 hours on the program. We want to thank everyone for listening and tuning in. Make sure to hit that like, share, subscribe button, and we'll be right back. Hour number 2 coming up next here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, hour number 2 here of the program. Welcome back to the Throw-In with Justin on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Hour number 2 is given to you thanks to Spreaker from iHeartRadio. Create and upload your audio podcast to Spreaker.com, where you can distribute over several locations, places like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and so much more. Be able to control your distribution, review statistics and analytics, and be able to get monetized for the work you put out there. Spreaker is the #1 platform for uploading podcasts. For more information, check out Spreaker.com. Alrighty. A little after 1 o'clock here. Take you guys up until 2 on the program. And we got plenty to talk about. Talking about some of the news lingering around. NIT tournament has continued once again. And we see, we're down to the final 8 yesterday. And I don't remember if I picked yesterday's teams. If I did, I would have went 2 for 2. I would have picked North Texas and Wisconsin, but bilingual. All right, so tonight's games. So North Texas last night, let's take a step back. North Texas last night beat Oklahoma 65-59. And then we saw Wisconsin in game 2 beat Oregon 61-58. Very similar games on the contrary note. Today, we will see UAB take on Vanderbilt at 7. And I like Vanderbilt to win this game. And then in game 2 at 9 p.m., we're going to go Cincinnati Bearcats all the way. Now, they have to feel really good about themselves after picking up a couple of victories already. And in all honesty, I feel confident up until at least they get to the next round. Every game so far, I felt very confident in the Bearcats. And I don't want to go jump the gun and say that, they're going to go on and win this thing, because if they have to beat Utah Valley tonight, then they would have to go win 2 more games afterwards. But I am feeling confident that this Bearcats team can keep it alive. It's all about keeping it alive, right? So I don't know. It's Cincinnati has done better than what Kentucky did. Just in quote unquote competition wise. I would like to see Cincinnati go all the way. And I think that's a fair statement as a local sports fan talking and covering Cincinnati Bearcats. I do have confidence in this game. It's kind of more, and maybe this is where, like for me, I sit back and I relax on this game. And maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Maybe I shouldn't be relaxing as much as I am. But they're the nighttime game. So when we come on tomorrow, we'll talk all about the game. Getting you guys ready, because the NCAA tournament continues tomorrow with the Sweet 16. Cincinnati Bearcats will have their game on Friday. Not the Bearcats, Xavier Musketeers. Over in college baseball, the Bearcats had a game yesterday at home against Marshall. They lost 8-4. They've lost the last 5 games in a row as they get ready to take on Xavier today at 3 p.m. It's the battle in Cincinnati, I guess, right? This is still all very fresh, young, and new to me. And I like to see Xavier. They've been out at it. I would like to see Cincinnati come out on top, losing the last 5. But Xavier has been really harsh. They haven't won a home game yet, losing last Wednesday to Michigan. So hopefully to get on the win column, if the weather is permittable, we'll see a game today at 3 p.m. Kentucky Wildcats, they go on to baseball. They go on to beat Eastern Kentucky yesterday. Final score 9-3. They were down 3-2 in the seventh inning, and then a couple of magical sprinkle stars in the seventh rose the Wildcats to go on to win 9-3. That's 19-2, winning 26 of 31, dating back to last season. An incredible stretch that Kentucky's making it. By the way, I've also noticed this is that I just read this that the Kentucky Wildcats are finally in the top 25 for baseball. Like, how hard is that going to be? Why would that be so hard? Kentucky is a good team. So we'll monitor that. Cincinnati Cyclones will take on Utah Grizzlies tonight, 10 p.m. It's their first of 3 on the road against Utah. They will play tonight, Friday, and Saturday, having alternate days off. So we'll give you all the highlights and information you need of that coming up tomorrow as well. And then we're back at it again when Cincinnati, with the Cincinnati Reds taking on the San Diego Padres. The Reds come into the spring training season 12-11, as the San Diego Padres are 11-12. I feel like I gotta sneeze. But Seth Lugo, who hasn't recorded a win or loss this spring, he's coming into the game for the Padres with a 1.46 ERA. And Graham Ashcraft is 2-for-1, and he's coming into this game with a 3.97 ERA. So it's great to see the Reds back at it again. And I want to start diving into a little bit of some of the divisions. As I mentioned earlier, that in order to understand where we sit among the Reds on how we're going to win, on how we're going to be able to have a successful year, we have to also understand where the rest of our division is. And so let's start off with spring. Let's start off with spring, with the top player from each spring so far. Maybe that's a little early to talk about. You think about this, though, okay? We have today, tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 5 days away, you guys. Okay? 5 days away before baseball gets underway. Wow. Well, before spring training's over with. Some games will go out until Monday and Tuesday but the majority of the part is that we're 5 days away from the end of spring training. We'll have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to all relax and recoup, come back to Cincinnati, and then get ready for opening day against the Pirates, which we are excited about. But in order to get to that, we're tackling on one of our divisions. That opening week series, which is a 2-game series at home, one's going to be against the Pirates. The other one's going to be against the Cubs before we head on the road. Like, we got to be prepared for this right away. And so as we get closer to opening day, I think it's only worthy enough that we start paying attention to. We haven't paid attention to the other ball clubs around the National League Central because of, well, not just because, but we're not paying attention to them. So let's kick things off. What are so this is one player from each team, including the Reds. That'll be the last that have made an impact on spring training. Coming in at number 1, we got Brice Turang. Brice Turang is one. Pardon me for a second. Turang, this is coming from MLB.com, from an article. And they have infielder Brice Turang as one of your more noticeable players coming out of Milwaukee. Turang will play a role in the minor leagues at some point in 2023, perhaps a significant one. The Brewers' 5th-ranked prospect per MLB Pipeline, Turang's power arrived last year at AAA Nashville, where he added some center field and to a defense repertoire that already included shortstop, second base, and some third base. With Milwaukee infielders Willy Adames, Luis Urias, and Abraham Toro will play in the World Baseball Classic, Turang has seen extensive playing time this spring as an impressive manager, Craig Counsell, and the coaches both at the plate of the field. This was written by Adam McCalevy. I apologize, I butchered that name. I'm going to just be... Okay. So as we look at Brice Turang, okay, he's a 23-year-old. He's in 13 games this season, 5 runs, 10 hits, a double, a home run, 4 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 4 walks, 9 strikeouts, batting average 294, 368 on base percentage. And based off of these numbers, if he goes down to the minor leagues and continues this way, he's going to be able to be somebody in the major league soon, especially helping out as a utility guy off the bench. And what's interesting when I was reading through this list before the show is being able to see that that these guys are going to come up with the guys that we have, like Christian Encarnacion and Matt McLean and Ellie De La Cruz. So that's pretty interesting. Coming in from St. Louis is Jordan Walker, 20-year-old outfielder from the 2020 draft pick, round 1 overall picked 21st. Jordan Walker here sits under the article given by John Denton. Walker, the number 1 player in the card system and the number 4 overall prospect in baseball per MLB Pipeline, showed up at camp as a player to watch and somehow still exceeds all expectations. The 20-year-old needs to just 10 Grapefruit League games to record 5 multi-hit performances, including in that stretch was the 102 mile an hour line drive base hit off the Yankees ace Garrett Cole and a 4-for-4 two home run game with 4 RBIs against the Nationals. The 6'5", 250-pound converted third baseman has proved himself capable in the outfield by making several plays. At this point, he's almost assuredly played his way into the opening day roster. Now, I just want to remind people on the opening day roster, okay, that, Cardinals are changing. They're all brewing. We'll talk about the Cardinals. They're not the same team they were last year. You don't have Yadier Molina. You don't have Albert Pujols in that list. I mean, and they're always notorious for finding good talent. So we'll see what type of good talent they come up with. But 16 games, 10 runs, 18 hits, 3 home runs, very impressive. And a lot of these young guys, they're trying to get starts left and right. 10 strikeouts, Batting average is 340. And when you're batting 340 in the first month, it's amazing compared to a lot of these other players that are just more suitable for one. They're off to a slow start. All right, over there in Chicago for the Cubs, we have Hayden Westnicki, 25-year-old right-handed, pitched with a veteran presence down the stretch. Looking into the Cubs, what they have to offer this season, looks like Hayden's going to be one of the top guys that they kind of expect to grow in the franchise. That has continued this spring when the right-hander has put himself in a strong position to either earn a rotation spot or be the first to call up. Yeah, I mean he's put up some numbers. He's 2 for 1 in 4 games, 3 ERA, 12 innings pitched, 9 hits, 5 runs. You're gonna give up those type of outings. He's only allowed 1 home run in the 4 games, which is really good. Striking out 17 batters, a 4-17 ratio from walk to strikeouts, with a 1.083 ERA. It's going to be scary to see Hayden on the mound against those Reds. All right, Travis Saggerty, one of the guys that we've kind of expected to be at the top of the list. He's really playing himself into the an opening day spot. We're seeing 18 games. In 18 games, he's scored in 9 runs, 10 RBIs, 3 home runs, 11 hits, 1 stolen base. I don't know what the 15 came. 7 strikeouts only recorded, batting .379, .438 on base percentage. Swaggerty, no one's played better in Pirates camp other than him. 22 prospect, according to the pipeline, blistering 400, 423 with 3 home runs and 9 RBIs on Saturday, came off the bench and demolished the first pitch that he saw. And pull this back up. The first pitch that he saw, you guys, which was a 439-foot home run, the longest home run hit by any Pirate during spring training. That's definitely impressive. Along with his bat, Swaggerty's made one of the best defensive plays of spring training, throwing a runner out at the plate with a perfect throw from center field. This guy, I think there's only room for Major League roster right now for Swaggerty. I really like this kid. And we're going to get a chance and treat to see him, hopefully, in the opening day next week. All right, let's get over to our Cincinnati Reds. Christian Encarnacion Strand, 23 years old, first baseman, kind of played a little bit of third base, righty, bats right, throws right, 21 pick from Minnesota, round 4. And man, he has something to offer. You know, it's kind of a bummer when we sent him down in 12 games, 7 runs, 15 hits, 2 doubles, 1 triple, 4 home runs, 13 RBIs, with only 2 strikeouts, which is incredible. Batting average in the spring training was .577 with a .556 on base percentage. I mean, for me, there's no other better numbers that I've seen than Christian Encarnacion Strand. And, you know, he's one of the guys that we're expected to see up, in all honesty, probably by if it's not by, sometime in the middle of the year, if not by September. You know, they're talking about on the Reds Locked podcast that you're going to see, could very well bold prediction of seeing a group of rookies out there in the infield come by the end of the season. That means Christian at first, McLean is at second. You think you have, I wouldn't say Barrero, Ellie De La Cruz at short, and Spencer Steer at third base. And I'm like, that is a very good possibility. Written in by Mark Sheldon. I love the guy. Cincinnati was big on Encarnacion Strand, raw power, and his mature hitting approach when they acquired him in August 2nd trade, and that they sent the starting pitcher Tyler Mahle to the Twins. It was all on display this spring as a 23-year-old prospect, ranked number 7 in the organizations by MLB Pipeline, got a long look at a non-roster invite. He batted .577 with 15 hits, 4 home runs, 13 RBIs with a OPS of 1.748. Encarnacion Strand was sent down to Camp Cuts last week in part of a neutral third baseman could get more work at first base. He also had only 48 games in 208 plate appearances in Double-A last year. However, he could be in the big leagues quickly as he continues to make adjustments to the minors. I want to thank MLB.com providing that information for us. And the one thing I will say about Encarnacion Strand is that, listen, right now, third base is good unless something happens to Spencer Steer. Right now, possibly that first base option is over, an opportunity. But, get him that work done. I mean, I know we want to bring these guys up, but we also got to be able to allow them to work a little bit and adjust and to move and all that fun stuff. All right, let's take a break. Let's come on back and let's take a look at the first team that we want to talk about heading into the 2023 season, which is going to be the Chicago Cubs, right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
Sudor, esfuerzo y trabajo, madre de humildes, de poco descanso, reina de la noche.
125 here on the program. Got to mix up the music a little bit, playing through Epidemic Sound. All right, it's baseball season, and that means you also bring out the sunflower seeds. And I love sunflower seeds. And probably not as much as I love pasta, but I love sunflower seeds. And this is not a promotional ad. But one thing growing up, living in California, is that you're always able to find a bag of Spits. Like, they have different brands. They have Davidson or David's. They got Bigs. But they got Spits. Spits is my favorite. And I was actually introduced to this by a guy at high school, years ago, when he would, because we were allowed to eat in class, and when he would eat, we would snack on seeds, and he would carry these big bags of Spits. And I was like, I never had Spits before. Let me try them. And he carried around the particular brand, Cracked Pepper, which is now my favorite brand. And trust me, I've tried to have Cracked Pepper and different brands, and nothing tastes, the same or even better than having the Cracked Pepper in Spits. And so it's baseball season, and notorious for baseball season. And my oldest is doing softball, and I'm excited. We'll talk about that. Hopefully we'll see if she has practice tomorrow, but it's baseball season, and that means, we got to do something when it comes to, getting my sunflower seeds. And it's a year-round thing, trust me. It definitely, salts out my my taste buds and, my throat, dries out my mouth. But, I love Spits. I'm a really big Spits eater. It's like, I'll eat David's, and I would, the thing is so with Spits, I could eat ranch, barbecue. I like my two favorite Spits brands are barbecue and Cracked Pepper. I'll eat the dill pickle once in a while. Not a favorite of, Bigs have those different like taco nacho stuff, and I'm like, no, just not going to, I'm just not going to get to that, So, hold on 1 second. Yeah, that's kind of the way I'm at with Spitz, but it's baseball season. All right, and we're going to be talking about the Cincinnati. We're going to start off with the Chicago Cubs and take a look at their roster, their page, what they have to offer, all after this quick break and word.
Like no one can. Where is your heart? What does it look like? Bruised, damaged, or mistreated. Where is your heart? What does it look like? What do you do with the feelings you feel?
This is the ad for Love's Not Enough. We interviewed a handful of the cast members several weeks ago. They're back at it again, this time for a 2-performance weekend only, hoping to take their production on the road. They will be live at the Fairfield Community Arts Center on Friday night, 7 p.m. on April 7th, which is Good Friday, Easter weekend, and then also on April 8th at 3 p.m. On that Saturday. And we're hoping to have some more interviews be conducted in between the time, and we'll be able to just display them here on the program. But Love's Not Enough, written and directed by Terry Chappell II. Tickets are still available, so if you guys are looking for something to do Easter weekend, I highly recommend going and checking out their plays and everything that they offer. All right, let's take a look into the Chicago Cubs real quick. You know, the Cubs made some additions to their roster, and we kind of known that the Cubs are kind of one step in and one step out. So I was just looking at the injury list, and we see outfielder Seiya Suzuki. He may be out through April or May, questionable for opening day because of a left oblique strain. Kyle Hendricks expected to return early 2023 with a right shoulder strain. And I think it was interesting to see where these guys were at. But, you know, let's look at that roster, because that's where I want to kind of pinpoint and figure things out with. Ooh, different roster format. No, I don't want stats. There we go. All right. So we're looking at the 40-man roster. And there was a couple of names that brought out to me, and this is going to be a combination of bullpen breakdown as well as your, as a depth chart look, because I want to see where the Cubs are at compared to our Cincinnati Reds. And honestly, if I believe that they're better than what they have a large rotation. And I think that's one thing that I think hurts our team. You got Marcus Stroman, Kyle Hendricks, Drew Smiley, Jameson Tylon. Excuse me for butchering that name. Justin Steele, who we saw plenty of last year, and I'm grown on to Justin Steele. I like Justin Steele quite heavily. Got Keegan Thompson, and then Hayden Resnicki, who we pointed out having a pretty good spring. The thing is they're locked up, they're stocked, if everyone stays healthy, on a good note, then you have room to move, but they're a pretty dangerous rotation. Then you move down to the bullpen, which Ethan Roberts is the only guy on the IL as of right now, but you see guys like Michael Fulmer, got Brad Boxberger, got Brandon Hughes, and Rowan Wick. There's a lot of great guys on this bullpen that if your starting pitching could get you a solid 6 innings, that back of the bullpen can be dangerous. Now at the same time, they've thrown in some fair share of hits and whatnot, but overall, I think that I think the Chicago Cubs are pretty solid at the first base spot, at the pitching and bullpen spot. Catcher, we get to see Young Gomes doing the catching, but he's also visited by a former Reds and Tucker Barnhart. And I'm like, it's a kind of a salty moment. I'm sure we're gonna see Tucker Barnhart, and I think it's hard because I know the direction has changed, but Barnhart was with the organization for a good while, and it's kind of hard to especially see him play not only for another team, but for another team that's in the same division as we are in. Over there at first base, I think a lot of combinations between Eric Hosmer and Trey Mancini. It's going to happen. We'll figure out I think it's mainly going to be down to the DH. One's going to be the DH and one's going to be playing first most of the time. Eric Hosmer, he didn't have a terrible career with San Diego, but maybe he just needs a new look, a new team. That's what I would say, and he would be successful. I'm a little, sketchy. I'm a little optimistic about how this would come out for the Cubs, overall. Nick Hoerner will probably most likely be getting the nod at second base. Patrick Wisdom, a couple years into the big league, with now the added on Dansby Swanson. And what I like about this combination here is that Dansby Swanson can share a lot of knowledge and can help train and work with guys like Patrick and Christopher Morel, who are slowly growing and coming up through the big league system. Ian Happ gets your left field spot here. We will also see Cody Bellinger out there in center field. And right now, Seiya Suzuki is currently a day-to-day with an oblique strain, expected to be back possibly opening day. Nelson Velasquez would be an option for right fielder for opening day if Suzuki is not back in time. Cody Bellinger is one of those guys. I guess we will see. It's what type of Cody Bellinger will we see? I know a couple weeks ago we came through with this list of players who should improve, and Cody Bellinger was one of those guys on that list that should be like, all right, this is a guy, depending on what type of season we've seen, because the last couple of years haven't been great. Before the pandemic was pretty solid. So is he able to get back to his old shape and form? And when you look at this Cubs team, I think of Cody Bellinger and I think of Eric Hosmer as those two guys really needing to get pushed back into their old ways, because they're like, let's face it, Eric Hosmer did not live up to the standard in San Diego from when he was originally signed. And so when we have him and then Cody Bellinger had a couple of down years, Cubs are really bidding on them kind of having that outbreak season again, at least a better season that they did last year. For Eric Hosmer, having that help at first base along with Trey Mancini, you have options. You don't have to play Eric Hosmer every day. And, you're going to see a different style at bat as well, being able to play the righty-lefty matchup, especially over there at first. And I think that's what they're going to take advantage of. What else do we got going on? Let's go ahead and just do they will be kicking off their season at home against the Milwaukee Brewers, which is going to be a good testament to because the Milwaukee is kind of considered one of the top teams over here, in opening, for opening day. So, really quickly, they're going to get a chance to show off at Wrigley Field this kind of new team that they're kind of putting together. And I also like the Cubs idea because they put together this team and it wasn't really on an expensive budget. They didn't go put, cost an arm and a leg for guys like Hosmer or Bellinger. Then they go have a 3-game series on the road against our Reds. And we'll talk a little bit about that closer to game time. Before then, they have a 6-game homestands against American League West teams, as in the Rangers and in the Mariners. So that's kind of how they kick their season off. To be honest, the Chicago Cubs, in my mindset, unless they get off to an early, huge, great start in, to the season, and I'm talking about a solid, 17-10 type run, then I really believe that they'll probably be luxurying back around 500, probably sitting right there in the middle of the division, probably third or even maybe fourth place, in my opinion. So that's kind of how we're going to do that for up until we get to every single team. And then closer to the time, we'll give you our final predictions in each stand, our standings, and who's going to excel, who's not, who's going to surprise us, and who's also not. I will pre-warn you that my honest opinion right now with the Reds, although I want them to go far, just isn't going to go as far as maybe one expected. I want to give you more of a realistic look. So don't expect me to say that the Reds are going to go on and win the division. That is considered what they would call a quote unquote bold prediction. So, do the Reds have enough to go to a playoff run and potentially win the division? Yes. Do they need a lot of things to go their way? Of course. And they would also need a lot of things not going the ways of the rest of the team and the rest of the division. But it could happen. You never know. I mean, I say next Thursday, all 30 teams start off at 0-0. And a lot of people are already saying that the Reds could win game 1 against Pittsburgh, and I believe in that. But it also comes at the hands of things like, all right, things that we have to stay together. And when we get to the Reds, I'll talk about what I expect them, how I expect them to play baseball. Because I don't think that they're a team. They're, not a team to go hit that long ball every time. All right, let's take our final break of the day. Come on back and let's get you guys ready for AEW Dynamite tonight. Who is the best option to challenge MJF first? You'll find that out next here on The Throw-In, available on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, 146. Welcome on back. AEW Dynamite tonight. Let's see who will be the first challenger to MJF AEW Championship, as not one, not two, but 3 guys invaded MJF's bar mitzvah. Interesting. Welcome back here on the program. Want to give a big shout out lastly to Epidemic Sound. Discover your world-class artists, composers, and bands. Find the perfect soundtrack and give your social media accounts the music they deserve. Epidemic Sound is a royalty-free music link. For more information, check out epidemicsound.com. That's the big question coming out of AEW, isn't it? I mean, we don't really have a lot or a tremendous amount of things to talk about AEW. I know I don't. It's all a bit about WrestleMania. And I low-key tried to cover a little bit, at least on Dynamite Night. And maybe the day after. There's big stories to talk about. And honestly, there hasn't. And due to my fault, I will take personal blame for why we don't talk about a lot of Dynamite on this program. Okay. And the reason why I don't talk about a lot of Dynamite on this program is because, in all honesty, there's not a whole lot to really talk about. The storylines of problematical cause just doesn't come down my way. I'm not going to sit here and try to break down a fight and how a fight should and shouldn't go down and what I would do, because I'm not a wrestler. I've never been in the wrestling business. And, I'm a fan giving you a fan perspective. Now, we're hopeful, that if there's something is intriguing, something sparks out of attention, all right, then we'll definitely cover a lot more of it. I mean, when Double or Nothing comes up, we'll cover more of it because WrestleMania does go down, but there's more questions than answers when it comes down to storylines at WWE. There's been longevity, and it's not AEW's fault. It's also my preference. I could sit down and watch Raw, SmackDown, NXT more than compelling to watch AEW or Dynamite or Rampage or Dark. And it's just also a different platform for me that I'm not. I guess after covering wrestling for over a year, I just still haven't covered it. It's the same reason why we don't talk a whole lot about Impact Wrestling or Ring of Honor or even Japan. But there are stories that come out and linger out in AEW. And one of the big topics that came out was last week, MJF had his bar mitzvah, re-bar mitzvah to say. And we didn't see one, not two, but three guys come out all potentially looking for a future title opportunity. Jungle Boy, Jack Perry, Darby Allin, who made his return and who took some after taking time off, and then Sammy Guevara. And it sparked something into me, and I think it sparked something into a lot of people, because we've seen time and time again between Jon Moxley over the last year. We've seen Jon Moxley, we've seen CM Punk, and now recently we've seen Bryan Danielson all tried to compete for that AEW World Championship. All within last year. We've only seen Hangman Adam Page and MJF from my recollection. And if I'm missing a name, please tell me down below. But last year was notorious to having the insights of non-homegrown talent. And I'm going to give AEW and Tony Khan credit where credit's due at, because this is something that when this kind of brought up, and I'm like, oh, wow, this is new. We're not only seeing homegrown stars, inbred built AEW talent now go after the title, and everything, all four corners are surrounded by homegrown, ingrown talent. But we're also seeing, but they've never been with another promotion as big. They've never been to the WWE in that sense, or Japan. They gone on to wrestle at other places, but they're really making a name for themselves in AEW. And I was like, this is interesting. This is exciting. I want to watch it. I want to tune in, because this is, you're not going to get the same storyline with Jon Moxley every time. We're not going to get the same storyline with Bryan Danielson. And the only way that you're going to be able to grow up these talents and to know if they're capable of holding AEW or not is by giving them a chance at MJF and at that AEW World Championship. Now, they don't have to go on and win. All right. But if they do something impressive and they've caught a lot of eyes by a lot of fans during this time, then they've done something right. Maybe you got to take a look at them. Maybe you got to reanalyze your decision and be like, all right, maybe they didn't work out with the AEW World Championship, but maybe they're working out somewhere else. Maybe we could fit them in somewhere else. And that's also what I've noticed about the TNT Championship, right? The TNT Championship was held by Samoan Joe because you knew Samoan Joe could get that title over. All right, when Darby Allin had it, he was promoting up, but I think he did it, I don't think he did enough time with that title to really deserve to be up here in the main conversation. But I still strongly believe that this this whole we're still sitting and waiting for Wardlow and MJF at some point this year for that AEW World title. But putting that title on Wardlow, then the Powerhouse Hobbs, you're bringing it back, everything back over to AEW because Joe's doing his thing in the Ring of Honor. And I'm not saying I don't enjoy these guys to have multiple titles, but Claudio has a Ring of Honor champion, which I think is now in the way of a new superstar that needs to be champion. We know what Claudio is capable of doing, but Ring of Honor, let's grow a little bit. One thing that I've think, and no disrespect to Tony Khan, but I think one thing that I feel tremendously of is that ever since they relaunched Ring of Honor and Tony Khan took over, they've held Ring of Honor down and behind, and they really don't have no base for Ring of Honor. And it's bummed out. It's so depressing because Ring of Honor was such a great product, even though I didn't get a chance to watch any of it. It was such a great product that, it was kind of a place where wrestlers could go to really start building a name for themselves. And they don't have that. They don't have that, honestly. So, all right, let's get back on the topic because the question is, who in the world is going to challenge MJF for that AEW World Championship? Well, I think it's as simple as it can be, plain as daylight. The number one thing you got to do is have that triple threat match to determine that next number one contender. And so, all right, who's going to win? Jungle Boy, Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin? I would personally like to see all three of them get an opportunity. This is a new challenge for MJF. And a couple weeks ago, after MJF outlasted Bryan Danielson and beat Bryan Danielson, making him tap out in the Iron Man match at Revolution, excuse me. I threw my hands up and I was like, what could possibly be better than that? Who could set that tone and challenge MJF? Who's in that locker room that is worthy enough and that can top what Danielson and MJF did? Now, I don't know if either three men could do so in a match, but we have some options. I could see Jungle Boy face, and everyone has personal heat. So I can see Jungle Boy. I could see Sammy Guevara. But I think that what MJF is going to get the most out of, and what the fans I think are going to enjoy the most out of, because Sammy Guevara is still kind of, for me, I consider him still more of a heel-based persona. But what I would like to see is Darby Allin, though. Darby Allin raises my attention. And I've heard stories throughout the week about, of already saying, can Sting's last match have to be included with with MJF, because we already know that Sting is going to go out there and include himself with Darby Allin for his last match, his retirement. But is MJF in that picture? It's supposed to be sometime this year. Now, I think this opens up a couple of different opportunities. One, between now, Double or Nothing. I think because right now that AEW championship maybe gets defended once against Darby Allin or Sammy Guevara. You go with like the lesser guy like Jack Perry, or you go on the setting yourself up to a Bryan Danielson once more at Double or Nothing, which I'm still favored for. And you know what? I'll be honest with you, I'm favored for that match more than I was back when they first met. Or you just go in a completely different direction. What was interesting on AEW last week, and what I've noticed is that they have, and hopefully this is something that they continue to do, is to shift forms, especially with the Black, the Combat Club and the House of Black, because they're really elevating, in my opinion, that AEW Trios Championship. But I'm intrigued to see if we get to see, if that's where the direction is going to go down, and you bring Bryan Danielson with you, and then you really have this fresh, new vibe, look, expression, excitement coming out of for the AEW World Championship. I don't know. That's where I'm sitting at. What do you guys think? Let me know. All right, we're wrapping up on a Wednesday afternoon. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Be sure to press on those notifications. If you guys are on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, come back and tune me in live tomorrow and Friday to wrap up the week. All right? We got a lot of talk about NIT stuff. Getting you guys ready for the NCAA tournament, Sweet 16. Talk a lot more Reds. Tomorrow we'll talk about the Pittsburgh Pirates and where they stand, where we believe they kind of stand, what their struggles are, and much more. Road to WrestleMania still awaits. Opening days up ahead. Thank you guys, everyone, for tuning in. And until tomorrow, my name is Justin. You guys are listening to The Throw-In right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.